and then welcome to my book corner, and we're doing a tag video today, and this is a new original tag that was invented by Greg over at Another Bibliophile Reads. I will link their video down below, and this is the hot or not A to Z tag. So this is very simple, 26 questions, each with a category to do with reading. You find it hot, find it not. I'm also going to link Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics, as he's also done the video as well. I think this gives you a bit of insight into people's sort of reading preferences, what they like. So we start with A, audiobooks. Hot. I've not listened to audiobooks as much as I wish I had done. Sort of fall in and out of them a little bit, but a good audiobook is a really good experience. So, which, just to recommend one right here and now, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, narrated by Stephen Fry, is really good. B is for, here we go, Bildungsroman. Dealing with a person's formative years or spiritual education. Not. I don't mind it being in a book. I don't want to read a whole book about it. Well, there we go. C is for children's books. Hot. As a parent, one of the things that I've really enjoyed doing over the years is reading the books to my kids at bedtime. Still do it now. But beyond that as well, what kids' books represent for potentially inspiring people to start reading is really important. D is for digital books. Yeah, hot and expensive. It's a bit too easy to buy digital books, buy too many. But there's books that I can get on my Kindle, which I cannot get physical copies for. I struggle to get physical copies of in the UK. E is for experimental. For me, this is a not. Sometimes it just baffles my brain too much. Sometimes I really like it, but it's not something I'd go out of my way to read. Then we hit F. Hot. It's fantasy. Okay. Fantasy is my preferred genre. It has been for decades at this point. I love a good fantasy tale. I even love a bad fantasy tale, if I'm completely honest. Give me swords and sorcery and magic and elves and the sort of fairy tale inspired stuff any day. Love it. G is for graphic novel. It's hot. I'm getting more into them. I've never really read that many before this year. I've read some really good ones this year. I'm going to include like manga in here as well and all that sort of stuff, which I'm starting to get into. It just helps elevate the stories. Absolutely love it. H is for horror, and this is hot. Not all horror. Some of it I really don't like, but I love horror in a lot of my stories anyway, and I've come across some really, really cool horror books in the last year. And I think it's my most read genre this year as well, so must be hot because I keep reading it. I is for inspirational, and this is a not. Yeah, I struggle with inspirational stuff. It just slides right off me. It doesn't that's just a me thing though. J is for journalism, and in terms of books, this is a not. I've never really read any proper journalistic work. I love reading news. I read news stories. I listen to news reports. I think journalism as a profession is a really important one when it's being done as it should be done. The key point. But from a reading point of view, not so much for me personally. K is for quiche or quiche, not quiche like you eat. As a popular or sentimental appeal. No, I'm not a sentimentalist by nature. And I'm not generally that interested in what's popular. Sometimes I will check it out of vague curiosity if it looks interesting, but as a rule of thumb, no, not for me. L is for library. I'm going to get a bit of hate for this one. This is based because of where I live and the quality of the libraries where I am, and the quality of the Libby app as well where I am is not good. And for me, this is a not. I wish it wasn't. Um, where I live in particular, well, especially from my point of view, they're so underfunded that not really anything there. There's no real community there. It doesn't draw people together like it used to. When I was a kid, loved them, absolutely loved them, but I've seen the decline of them, unfortunately. Or at least where I live. M is for mystery, and this is who doesn't love a good mystery? Who doesn't love going through a story trying to figure out what the twists are? N is for non-fiction. This is a not overall. There is some non-fiction I do like. I do love a lot of ancient historical stuff. I've read various bits and pieces. There's a few biographies I'm interested in as well. But as a rule of thumb, I won't go diving into non-fiction that often, unless it's something very, very specific. O is for Omnibus and Hot. I quite like buying collections together as one big overall book or set collection. So for me, I love an omnibus. You can end up with books you can beat people to death with, because there's so much in there. Looking at some of my my Heritage of Shannara omnibus book that I've got. Hey, it's poetry, and I blame school for this. I hate poetry. I really do. I just think the way we had to study it in high school just killed any chance of me loving it. So this is a not for me. Even to the point where I hit normal books that have quite a lyrical prose, I struggle with so much. So much. Q is for quests. I love fantasy. I'm going to love quests. I love how it can enable character development, especially for the main protagonist or antagonist in a story as well. So, the next one's going to surprise some people. R is for romance. And as of right now, this is a not. I've never really read romance until this year. I have read some that I've enjoyed this year, but I do struggle to find ones that keep me engaged, and it's not a genre I particularly go out of my way to read. Don't mind romance in my books, but romance as a book, not quite for me. S is for science fiction, and I really want this to be hot, but not for me. And I think it's just because I've not quite found the bit that I like yet. I love sci-fi on TV, in films, in video games. I've listened to some really good audiobooks that are sci-fi as well. But reading sci-fi, I really, really struggle with, and I find it quite dense and difficult to get my head around sometimes for whatever reason. But only when it's in written format. Every other media, absolutely love it. At some point, I will find one and it will click, and that will switch. But as of right now, unfortunately, I feel very sad saying this. Unfortunately, that's not. T is for translation. So this is books, obviously, translated from one language to another. This is hot. It gives you some really interesting cultural insights sometimes. There's two books that I've read this year that are translated from Japanese, which are really, really thought-provoking. Absolutely adored them. Also, a lot of like the manga and stuff is obviously translated from Japanese as well, and I'm really enjoying those. So that's hot. U is for Übermensch. This is the Superman or the extraordinary human, characters who can do everything. For me, overall, this is a not, simply because I don't like what I class as a Mary Sue character. I like my characters to have flaws, like have a bit of an inner darkness to them. I like them to have weaknesses. I have no issue with hyper competent characters, but I don't like characters that are just amazing at everything. It just pulls me out of a story. V is for Victorian. So this is literature from 1837, 1901, and for me, this is a not. And I struggle reading classic because of how much language has changed from then to now, and I find them quite difficult to get into, and I lose focus while reading them. I don't know why, I don't know what it is. Some that I have read, which I've really enjoyed, but I just find it so dense and difficult to get into. Again, a bit like sci-fi, I think when I find ones that I like, I'm going to absolutely love them. but there's not been that many so far. W is for Western, and this is a not simply because it's not a genre that I've ever really come across. I like the Western aesthetic when it's in other media, especially sci-fi. But I've never actually read anything that's Western, so if you've got any recommendations, drop it in the comments below, let me know. X is for X-rated. Before this year, I was a sweet and innocent soul, and I hadn't read anything. And I have now read things, and it's hot. Yeah, to the point where I'm doing a live reading at some point in the next few weeks, as of time of recording this, which is going to be an experience. But I'm not explaining myself on that one. I feel like I've missed one somewhere. Oh well, never mind. Y is for young adult. This for me is hot. Quite a few of the books. What I tend to find is that I tend to read the top end of young adult, where it's verging in a little bit more, and I've really enjoyed what I've read in there. I genuinely think that it is a really exciting genre that's growing so fast. Thing with it is, whilst it is a genre on its own, it does lean into fantasy, romance, sci-fi, various other genres, horror as well. And it's quite an interesting way to look at how it's being reshaped a little bit. I know I used to work in a bookstore, and that was the fastest growing section in the store while I worked there. And again, it's so exciting because it means more people are getting into reading, more young people are going to be reading books. And that for me is a great thing. And we reach the end with Z for Zeitgeist. Spirit or mood of the times. No. I wish I did. This is a not. Yeah, again, it's kind of in the same sentimentality bracket. I'm not really that interested in things that are like a snapshot of history that much. I think it can be interesting. I think in some cases but it's again not something that I would go out of my way to. So yeah, there's my A to Z of the Hot or Not book challenge. Tag. Not challenge. Tag. So I would like a couple of my friends to do this. So I'm only going to tag 3 people. First one is Noah at In Between the Lines. Jaleesa at Reading Beyond the Book Cover. And Aylin at Natcha Books. I'd really like to see what your answers are for this. And also, thank you to Greg for creating this. That's it. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you all soon.